I'm going to ask you this following question, and I'm going to read it right off as I wrote it because I feel like it's a bigger question, so it might be hard for me to hold together.
Okay.
It might be hard to hear now that if I read it out loud for the first time, so you'll have to forgive me for that too.
All right. Go for it.
Um, so this is a podcast that explores topics that at least loosely are connected to psychedelic medicine, culture, or research. And given the growing body of both empirical and anecdotal evidence for profound, even so-called mystical type experiences under the influence of psilocybin, which is a fungi metabolite. Beyond the material alone, so as beyond sort of what's happening in the brain, can you speculate on what, if any, involvement a so-called fungal mind might play in what we humans encounter under the effects of psilocybin?
I don't. I think you need to explain that a little more fully. I'm
So,
not quite sure what you're asking there.
yeah, I mean, great. Slightly disorienting was a bit of the goal, but I'll I'll bring it in slightly because the reason I'm asking is because we'll say fungi have some kind of mind, okay,
Okay.
and this fungi has some kind of mind, and part of what any organism does is it is a response to its environment, to its survival needs, and so on and so forth. And so any particular metabolite a creature has from particular fungi, I assume is not accidental. It plays some sort of role in the mind of this fungi. I'm not saying that psilocybin facilitates its consciousness or anything. I just mean as a metabolite of fungi, it is an expression of this organism that is fungi, this mushroom species, right? I know it's in a cicada fungi and some other stuff, but simplifying it down to just mushrooms. So my question is, we consume this metabolite, this fungi metabolite, and we have these kinds of experiences. And there's a very material way to describe this, which is, well, it just so happens that this metabolite is close enough to this brain chemical that we have such that it creates these changes in our neural firing and function that creates these changes in our subjective experience. Check mark, done. But beyond that expression, that sort of description alone, do you feel like there's any involvement there between any relationship between this fungal mind of this organism that produced this metabolite and what humans encounter when they're under the subjective effects of this metabolite?
I guess if I understand your question, that my answer would be no, in the sense that fungi really don't have any. The only relationship that fungi have formed with us as a species comes through what comes through the intimate interactions between fungi that live on the human body, on our skin. And this is a lot of what I write about in the new book. The fungi that grow in our guts, the fungi that grow throughout the body. Fungi play a far more profound role in human health than we've recognized until quite recently, and that's because of scientific advances. We can really look at the fungi. We can look at fungal genetics in a way that we couldn't, the genetics of these organisms in a way that we couldn't previously. But having said that, compounds like psilocybin, or the pathways that produce these compounds, evolved long before humans were around. And so I regard interactions between not that I've had them personally, we can talk about that, but the profound interactions that we experiences that we have after consuming psilocybin, converted into psilocin, and then interacts with serotonin receptors, some of them. Um, I think it's just part of the noise of nature.
Mm.
However, those compounds did evolve. I would hazard a guess they evolved with, I'm being very anthropomorphic here, a specific intent to interact with animal nervous systems because um, we share in our nervous systems share commonalities that we see with commonalities with nervous systems throughout the animal kingdom. And so if psilocybin or the production of psilocybin evolved, for example, as an anti-fedon, I'm not putting forth that idea now, something that changed the behavior of animals that were damaging these fruit bodies. The fact that they have a profound effect upon our experience, our cognitive experience, I think my guess is, my feeling is this is just part of the noise of nature. We've arrived too recently to have affected the biochemical evolution of these fungi, of the mushroom forming fungi, and then also you mentioned these psychoactive compounds produced in the fungi that infect cicadas and so forth. So I think actually we see a lot of this in terms of also the poisons that fungi produce, that they evolved for their effect upon anti-fedant effects upon invertebrates, principally insects. I think that's probably why pathways for the production of psilocybin and other compounds that are actually psychoactive when they're introduced into our nervous systems, yeah, they were there for the insects, not for us. And that's not obviously a universally held opinion, but that's my gut instinct, is that we're actually being too sort of narcissistic if we think that these ancient pathways evolved in a fashion to in any sense deliberately affect human behavior. I think they're made for insects. That's my guess. But there are other, you'll find other professional mycologists that will disagree with that point of view and think that they really did evolve for some other purpose. But that's kind of where I'm at.
From the perspective of the waters, and how turbulent they can or cannot be in certain domains of science, leaning into the sort of insecticide perspective is definitely much less turbulent because it doesn't require the sort of like, I heard you not wanting to put on the pedestal humans, but for myself, I'm reluctant to take humans out of the equation as being worthy of consideration. And so when I think to myself, like, is it possible to experience the mind of a fungi? And my sense is that the consumption of psilocybin is about as close probably as we will get directly anyways, outside of maybe other possible circumstances that I couldn't really speak to and don't really know. Because there's something to that. If we consider, if we don't put humans on a pedestal, but don't eliminate humans from the equation. If humans, say, are the planet's sense organs for beauty, maybe they're also the planet's sense organs for suffering. I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh who said something like, like encouraging us to learn how to hear the cry of the earth within us, like to hear the pain of the earth as it cries through us. Maybe we could be sense organs for its pain, and when I think about, outside of what I assume to be the consequence of horizontal gene transfer that got, psilocybin into this cicada infecting fungi, we look at where these mushrooms generally were. Well, they were most flush in areas where significant ecological destruction just took place. Even still in Mexico, it's like in the cracks of the mudslides and so on and so forth. And even now, where do we see them? We see them on the edges of grasslands where the ground's been all churned up, the grass-loving fungi, or in the growing in the dung of cows that are consuming the grass. Cows, obviously, at this point, being the consequence of agriculture and the destruction wrought onto the earth to forward our sort of animal agriculture, animal husbandry, and on the edges of settlements where the wild sort of intersects with humanity, where the churning up and the damage is there, but it hasn't been completely tamped out. Then we see the budding of the Selamantiata and the cyanescence and the rest. And it makes me wonder, if we think about the larger ecology of the world as having its own kind of mind and everything playing its kind of part, is there something about why the effects of psilocybin seem to directly impact the only creatures that we know of capable of perceiving beauty and to position ourselves as though we could experience the pain of the larger organism that is the planet? Could there be some sort of evolutionary role that they're playing in trying to help as Dennis McKenna says, like help wake up the monkeys or something to this effect? I know I'm going way out there. I don't expect you to get on board with me here, but I think about this quite a lot. I don't want to go. I try to wager on ambivalence, but
I think you raised some really provocative ideas. I think that I think perhaps I gain a great sense of peace from the idea that we're not what it's all about. That we're latecomers to the show. We've created immense damage to the biosphere, obviously. I don't know. I get some sense of sounds like masochism, doesn't it? Some sense of elevation from sort of just recognizing our limitations and this brief candle. What was that? Well, it was Shakespeare, but Dawkins used that, didn't he? That we're here for a while and we flicker. It's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. What's that? Yeah. So, yeah, to each his own.